Thank you for coming to the Awaken Life podcast. I'm your host, Scott Landis. How can you live an absolutely fulfilling and purpose-filled life, maintain a passionate, intimate relationship, all while raising kids and growing multiple streams of income? That's the big question we seek to answer on this podcast by interviewing people who are already doing it. One thing we know for sure is it takes a community to do it well. So thank you for being a part of the Awaken Life community. I'm looking forward to growing with you, and on to the episode. Welcome to the Awaken Life podcast with Scott Landis. And today my guest is Talia Shapero. And hi, Talia. So she is, let's see, where did it go? I lost the bio. Okay. Talia Shapero is a sleep coach. It optimizes your ability to sleep and feel rested through goal setting, education, resources, and helping implement incremental behavioral and lifestyle changes that will have a compounding positive effect on your sleep and well-being. This is going to be great because my high performers who are listening to this, they are getting up early, squeezing every ounce of their day out, so they need this information. Talia identifies and addresses the imbalances that are impacting the quality and quantity of your sleep through a holistic investigation of your issues and puts together a plan to get your sleep on track for long-term improvement. We've got websites, we've got experience sharing, we've got a system, we've got an offer at the end, so you're going to want to stay tuned. Talia, thank you so much for being on the Awaken Life podcast. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So let's start with kind of the who you are and where you're from. So tell me a little bit about you.
Yeah. How far are we going back today, Scott?
Well, let's see. So where are you located?
So I am located in Toronto, Canada.
Oh my gosh, good day.
Thank you. It's freezing cold here today. So I'm grew up here most of my life, and I spent some time living in London, overseas in the UK. I came back here. My background is actually in teaching and education, and I've recently launched about 6 months ago. So this is very exciting.
Excellent. So how did you learn about sleep?
Yeah, well, I actually got into sleep because for many, many years, I was a chronic insomniac. So I got into it, I actually experienced, burnout about 3.5 years ago, and, lots of different things going on there. But, one of the things that came up was my insomnia. And so I worked on treating my insomnia, and it was really interesting because when that was going on, and it took a period, several months, I was so excited about it. I was learning all these things about sleep, and I would shout from the rooftops to anyone I knew because I, as an educator, I like to educate and, share what's going on. And I noticed a few things, I'd be telling people what was going on. And first of all, nobody knew anything about sleep. Like they didn't understand what it was. And also no one knew that there were solutions out there that you could improve your sleep and get over insomnia or other sleep related challenges. And the third thing was that yet everybody knew somebody who didn't sleep, or they couldn't sleep, or their mom couldn't sleep. So, that's when the entrepreneur in me went, oh, ding, maybe there's a way I can really help others. And it was so transformative for me overcoming my sleep challenges. So, I'm really, really passionate, and that's how I got into it. So, got my certification. It's a really new field. Sleep research itself is somewhat new in relation to, the health and wellness field. And sleep coaching and sleep consulting is even newer. So I'm really looking forward to this. And I think, more now than ever, as a result of the pandemic, there's a lot more focus on mental health and wellness, and sleep ties in so much with that.
Right. Yeah. Good timing. So, so you mentioned the entrepreneur in you kind of had some bells go off, and that's definitely going to resonate with my audience. So tell me about, so we'll come back to the sleep research and what you do there. I want to build more of the who you are. So um, you mentioned a few things that I want to touch back on. So you grew up in Canada, you spent some time in London, so you've been around, you're an educator. So you were, what kind of education did you do before?
Yeah, so I did I was an elementary school teacher for about 7 years. So working, with like 4 to 6 year olds. And then when I moved back to Canada, that's when I started up my first business. I was sort of, I liked being in education, but I was more interested in things like curriculum development but I had to do my time in the classroom. And so when I moved to Toronto back home, I really wanted to transition, but I had to pay the bills, had to go and get a job. So I worked in a daycare, and I actually met my now ex-business partner, but in my previous business. So we started a business in the early education field offering play-based enrichment classes for children and parents and caregivers, because in Canada, there's a real shortage in daycare, and it was becoming really expensive, and also expensive. So a lot of parents were staying home with their kids, yet they didn't know what to do. They weren't experts. So we created these programs where we ran all these fun things for kids, but the purpose was really to educate parents about how to support their kids at home. So that was, my background. I did that for about 7 years, 6-7 years. And then I switched over to this.
Okay. So, and how long ago? So that was your first business, right?
Yes.
Okay. So how long ago was that?
So I wrapped that up in June 2021. And then I started.
And it was about 6 or 7 years before that
that
I started. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So so I'm always curious, like because I got started, I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was when I got started. I just sort of blindly went into it. I was on this corporate track, and then there was a downsizing and a severance package, and then an invitation to start an insurance agency. That's how I got started in as a business owner and entrepreneur. And I discovered after the fact that I kind of learned about entrepreneurship afterwards. I never set out to be one, but then I realized I really liked it on accident. So I'm always curious, like, how people get started. Some people grow up in an entrepreneur family and they just know right off the bat. So what was your story like? Did you kind of have a blindly go into it, or did you just know you needed to do something creative and entrepreneurial?
You know what? It's funny because no, I would never have pegged myself as an entrepreneur. And in fact, when I left my last business, so much of me, there was part of me that it was like, oh, you know what? I would just love to sit in an office, get in, work for someone else. The clock is off. I don't care. And when I was exiting the last business, I'm like, I don't think I'm ever going to start anything again. That wasn't on my mind. But I think, I don't know, there was a passion in what I was doing. And I think, I guess I suppose there is something in me that's always looking for an opportunity. And of course, being your own boss has its benefits, but I think, it absolutely has its drawbacks and risks if you're not managing yourself properly, which is what happened to me the first time around. So I guess there is some fire inside of me, but I'm almost a reluctant entrepreneur. I do it, and I'm happy to do it, and I feel excited about it now. I really do.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe this won't be the end. I don't know. It's a funny one.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that, because I describe myself a lot of times as a recovering certainty junkie. Like, there's nothing certain about being an entrepreneur, but I'm kind of wired for stability, certainty, like predictability.
Yes, completely. Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
I understand.
So reluctant entrepreneur, I get you. So, but I would say over time, it does become something where, it's like it fills that need for creativity, and you get to a place where you're like, I don't know if I could work for someone else anymore. Like, there was a time, but now I don't know. I've gotten so used to like being the master of my own destiny, so to speak. And I don't know. I think that's a thing. I've had some clients who are like, I'm so burned out about, running my business. I'm thinking about going getting a job, but I don't know if I can do it. So I think we all kind of teeter on that at some point, but yeah, I get you. I get you. Anything else to add to that?
Yeah, and I guess it's probably, I know maybe it comes back to just, what are the values? What's the purpose? What's purpose to me? And I think that whatever I've done has gone that way. And when I guess it's led to creativity and what I'm interested in at that time, and finding a way to serve what, is important to me and my values.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. So somewhere in there, you come across insomnia to the point where you have to find a solution. And you found a solution and you realize, okay, there's a I don't know if it's an old adage or what, but there's an idea of if you can find the biggest problem in the world and solve it, you've got a viable business. You can, the degree that you can earn money on something is how big the problem is, right? Yeah. So yeah, you got a good one there, and you've got a solution. So to unpack the rest of that story, like I want to get into like the pain of the time, like your time of struggling through that. I'm sure somebody can identify with that. And there's hope for somebody who's listening, who's in the middle of that struggle. But go back to where you felt like, gosh, I don't know, it was really hard.
Yeah, I think, you know what, I mentioned earlier that I had burnt out. And so that was related. So, go back maybe, 4 or 5 years ago, I was doing this business with my business partner, and every few years, as you do, you need to reevaluate what's going well, what's not. And we kind of realized, we're like, what we're doing, we're enjoying it, but it's not scalable. It's not super profitable. It's good, but we need to grow. And so, my business partner's like, well, let's start up a daycare, childcare center. And I think I knew in my heart of hearts, I wasn't passionate about that anymore. I left teaching because I was, getting exhausted dealing with kids, the bureaucracy around it, you're a little bit stifled in terms of things. And I knew that would be the case getting into this. But I think probably a lot of business owners, might resonate. It's like you're in something and, you don't want to let your business partner down. You don't want to let yourself down. You want to grow, right? You want to be successful. And so I think I went, I went along with it. But probably what ended up happening is I was going in this direction and I kept realizing, I'm like, this isn't really what I want to go. So then there was, anxiety there and fear. And also, with me, I had a issue that this was all building up from years when I first started. I definitely have overachieving tendencies. My work-life balance was horrendous. I had no boundaries between my personal and work life. I had put a lot of pressure on me, self-imposed pressure. And so, that was just continuing to build and build, but it wasn't that exciting anymore because I wasn't loving the direction that I was going. So then it was just stressful. And then, definitely, I think a lot of us get stuck in that, hustle culture mindset where, okay, well, hours put in is going to equal productivity on the output. But that's, I know that now that's not the case, but, you're just go, go, go. And so, that was all happening. And then I think a big trigger was the birth of my son. So he's now, he's just turned 6, but, he was born, we were small business owners. We didn't, I didn't have maternity leave. I didn't have childcare until much later. So I'm just, burning the candles at both ends, waking up with him when he's up, and if he's sleeping, trying to get any work done, working, all hours of the night, trying to be responsive, not trying to let anyone down. And then that's when, the sleep issues started just building and building. And I had never been a great sleeper. So it was, there were some predisposing factors that were there, but it all kind of just came to a head. And that's when, I'm like, I can't, I can't do this anymore. And I can't. And I think I went to my doctor. Like I was getting physically sick. I was not well. My emotions were so out of whack. My perception, it was like I had these gray clouds around me, even though I objectively had a really good life, everything. I had a healthy family. I had, a great relationship, good friends, but I was kind of falling apart. And I think it's definitely, common for women in particular and mothers who are, managing all these things. And I can't fault my husband. He's wonderful. But I just got caught up and, I ended up going to my doctor and I spoke to a therapist and they were like, you're burnt out, I didn't even identify it myself, when you're stuck in it. And so I, spoke to my business partner about it finally, because also I hadn't really been communicating at all. She knew that I hadn't slept and she said something that was really, really impactful. And she was like, oh, I'm sorry you're feeling this way. And listen, we got into business together because we wanted to make this work around our lives. And right now, like if the business is driving you and it's not working for you, like get out. It's just work. It's just business. Like you got to reevaluate, right? This is your whole life. You need to think about the life that you want to lead. So, that was my darkest point.
That was a nice response, a kind response from your partner.
Yes, she was great. She was great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about, okay, so the doctor time. So again, as you said, I think so many people can resonate with that. I think most of the people that listen to this have kids at home and have been through that are in it with the young kids and especially the moms, like you said. And they go through a lot of, seeking conversations, multiple doctors. It's you told that story. It sounded like you had like one little visit and you were told you're burnt out. Is there more to it? Because I mean, the things that I'm curious about, did you have testing done? Was there like thyroid stuff? Was there adrenal stuff? Was there cortisone? Like all these words pop into my mind as you tell the story. Is any of that happening?
Yeah, well, I did. It's fun because I know in the States, there are a lot like here, they're a bit more hesitant to do like a full panel of blood work. But I did, I was speaking to my doctor and she did some basic testing. What did come up is that I was extremely deficient in B12, which is, can certainly interfere with sleep issues. And that's what was making me feel physically sick. Like I just felt like I had the flu all the time. And I know I wasn't getting the nutrients. I wasn't eating well or really at all, when I was in that anxious state. Some people overeat, some people undereat. I wasn't taking care of myself. And I was speaking to a therapist as well. And then, what came across, they both said that was really important. They said, you need to get, there's all these things going on in your life that we can overcome and deal with, but you've got to get your sleep in order. And, now I know, but the reason is, they say because sleep and stress is so closely connected and we need sleep to help balance our stress hormones. Sleep helps lower our anxiety levels. It helps us view stress in a constructive manner. It helps us to respond to stress instead of react. And so I was just definitely in that fight or flight mode all the time. And then what can happen though, there's this vicious cycle, right? So then, you need sleep to ease your stress, but when you're stressed or anxious, you can't sleep because there's certain physiological changes that are going on in your body that are not putting it in a conducive space for rest. And then you can't sleep and then it's a cycle and then you're stressed. So there was this whole thing, and it was interesting because it wasn't even my doctor who said, go and do this for sleep. It was a friend of mine whose brother had just overcome insomnia. And he said, oh, I know someone who does cognitive behavior therapy for insomnia, which is a specific type of, it's a structured program for that. Why don't you have a call with that person? But I'll tell you, it was a long process. I think it was probably, another, I don't know, 6-7 months before I started it. Like it was,
oh, wow.
and I think a lot of us, you're self-aware about things, but, to make the change really takes time. And so and I'm grateful for it, but I think a lot of us, you get to your depths and then you're finally like, okay, I can't live like this anymore. What can I do? Because I think it was also an investment at the time. And I'm like, oh, I don't know, my business is in growth mode and I don't have this money to spend on this, all those things. And, I definitely before got stuck in the minute, like the small stuff instead of the big picture. So it took a little while and then I did it, but it was a holistic approach as well. I was seeing a therapist for CBTI. I was seeing my doctor because they were, measuring my nutritional, my vitamin and nutritional levels, and then having talk therapy. So there was a lot of stuff going on. But the good news is that I'll never be back in that dark place again. Wow. So I really see the value of it. Yeah.
I mean, that I would imagine that's the promise you're able to make with your solutions that you give to your clients. Is that right?
Yes, definitely.
This stuff and you've got it.
Yeah. And I've been there.
Great.
So
that's compelling. Okay. So let's see. Oh, one more question about where people might be. I'm curious. A lot of people end up on medications, right? So you're talking about this cycle of, you need sleep, but you can't sleep because your body's not in a state for it. And there's like all these things you probably are able to help people with, but where they're at right now, a lot of times they'll go to medications and, I don't know how it is in Canada, but in the US, people get prescribed stuff all the time and it has so many side effects and, it can just like another snowball effect, right? So what's your experience with medications or supplements and like where that can maybe exacerbate?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I was one of those people. So I went for years and years, like I could not fall asleep or I wouldn't without some sort of aid. So that may have been sleeping pills, off-label medication like Benadryl, marijuana, alcohol, like almost every night I was in the cycle. And what happens is that people become really psychologically dependent on them. I mean, some of these sleeping pills are habit forming, a lot of them are, but the issue with them is that, they can be useful in short-term instances, or if someone's dealing with a particular, so something's going on, but they're not studied and they're not meant to be used for more than, 6 weeks, a few months. And it's and the issue with them is that people are not getting naturalistic sleep as they would without them. So it's knocking people out, but a few issues, the side effects, right? There's side effects that are happening. They might feel groggier, just cognitively, they're not there. There's a higher risk of accidents or going on the next day. And they don't address the root cause, I think. And that is the issue with me when people are on pills. We're like, well, what's really going on? Right. And we need to figure out, how did you get here in the first place? So meds and supplements have their place. And, in the case of me, for sure. And I'll always talk to my clients and say, listen, when's the last time you got a blood panel done? You've got things tested? Because absolutely, things like magnesium or B vitamins or iron can definitely contribute to sleep issues. But, for example, what everyone's talking about these days is melatonin, right? Melatonin. And, I think it's gone up by like 500% in the last few years or something crazy, the use. And, and I think melatonin for a lot of people, it's more of a placebo effect than it is actually helping, because melatonin is not, our body produces melatonin on its own naturally, and it produces it in response to darkness. And so, it's a body clock regulator. It's not a sleep initiator. So a lot of people are taking it as a sleeping pill. That's not its intention in the first place. And then it also can have some knock-on effects. Some people can wake up with headaches or, grogginess as well. So I think, for me, there's everyone's looking for a quick fix.
Mhm.
And I make that really clear when I work with people. And I often work with people for, several months, because
Mhm.
I say, first of all, think about how long it took you to get into this situation. Well,
Mm.
there's not a quick fix to get out. It would be nice if there was, but
Mhm.
things like sleeping pills or, melatonin is useful in certain conditions. I don't want to say that it's
Sure.
not, but it's really figuring out like what is causing your issue to begin with. And
Mhm.
usually it's not just a supplement or,
Mhm.
something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's good. I think that again resonates with my audience is finding the root cause. I think we're not satisfied with putting a band-aid on it. We want
Yeah.
healing. We want the holistic, like the assumption is that I'm not dealing with a medication deficiency or a supplement deficiency. I mean, there might be some, like you said, deficiencies there, but the assumption is I want to find the root cause of this. I want that solution. I don't want a band-aid. So I love that that's what you do with your clients. All right, cool. So now I really want to hear, with all that backdrop, so how do you get to that root cause? And you made that bold promise, like if you get this figured out, you never go back. I love that. That's exciting. So yeah, I want to hear it.
Yeah.
What are like the first steps? And like, I know that you probably have it's not a one size fits all, but yeah, what are the first steps for getting to that root cause?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I will say, I will make a small correction though, that I won't say I'll never go back there, right? We all have periods of sleeplessness. It is normal and natural. We have variations in our sleep. However, you need not to go back to, yes, I will never go back to a period of, I don't know how many years of full blown insomnia.
That's awesome.
Um, yeah. So I always start, well, first, I think it's important I always tell my clients, I say, sleep is a natural function of the human body. We are fundamentally designed to sleep well, most of us. Okay. And in case there's certain sleep disorders or things that are outside of our control. But usually when people are experiencing sleep challenges, it's due to, it could be stress or these disruptive behavior lifestyle habits that have become ingrained over a period of time. And then people get stuck. They're kind of stuck in these bad habits, these negative sleep spirals, I call them.
Mhm.
And, it could be due to medication or a hormonal imbalance or often it's a combination of things. So when somebody comes to
Mhm.
me, I do a really thorough holistic investigation of their issue. So I'm looking at, of course, their sleep patterns and schedules, but I'm also examining their levels of light that they're getting into the day, their work-life balance, their, stress and anxiety is so huge. That is, I would say 90% of people who I work with have, that is the, busy brain, can't switch off, just go, go, go. I'm looking at their activity levels, their nutritional choices, any medications or medical conditions that they're on. And, I'm also looking to screen for any medical sleep disorders that I think they might have that, they would need to go and get a proper sleep study. And so what I do, like I call myself, I'm a little sleep detective. So I look through all their assessments and, get them to fill out quite a lot of information. And then from there, I can shine a light. I can see, okay, you know what? I think, this might change and this could tweak and this might be contributing to it. And I do a lot of sleep education initially with my clients because I think it's really important for them to understand the how and why of sleep and also educate them about what typical sleep is. I think, a lot of people have misconceptions about what sleep looks like and what they should be doing. And that can sometimes make people think that they have a sleep issue when they don't, or it might get in the way of treating something. So,
Sure.
a lot of that investigation. And then what we do is, part of that coaching process is bringing it back to them and saying, okay, well, what do you think after knowing all this? What can we work on? And what I do is work with them and we put together I call it a, personalized sleep optimization plan where I'm meeting with them over a period of time. And, every week or two, we're putting small incremental changes into place. So little things that they can feel good about doing.
Mhm.
I think you probably know as being a coach that, it's, people are more successful when they're employing small change and working on systems that's going to help them get to their goals, but we're not giving them a laundry list of things to do that we're going to put in place, right? We're a habit mind. We don't like to change, for better or worse, right? We can get into good habits or bad habits. So a lot of what I do is, breaking those bad habits, putting things together for them, and also, referring out and giving them suggestions for other things that they might need to do on their own. And we continue to build upon that until those healthy sleep solutions are found. And, you're absolutely right. Sleep, there's no one size fits all. There's definitely, blanket sleep hygiene, good sleep hygiene tips. But from my perspective, everybody really responds differently to different interventions. And so it's really important that I meet my client where they are and work with them, and that they're taking away something that, they'll be successful at, and continuing to scaffold and build upon that progress.
Cool. All right. So one thing I've noticed about people that have trouble getting to sleep, this isn't everyone, but I can think of a few cases. Trouble getting to sleep, they're also the same people that have trouble waking up. So it's sort of like this, oxymoron thing that, but yeah. So what about waking up? Like, okay, let's say we can get to sleep faster, but we're having trouble like getting started and getting going. I have a 14-year-old that really comes to mind.
Okay. But, teenagers. Yes.
That might be a whole different animal. I'm not sure.
That's a whole different animal. Listen, their biology is primed differently. They are, I always tell this to parents who have teens. So what happens in the teen years is that their melatonin levels, like their sleep cycle, is actually shifting later. So biologically, they are not feeling tired until later, and then they are waking up later. So waking them up for school at like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning or earlier. I know in the States schools start, they can start quite early, is like you being woken up at 4 a.m, And so I always say, don't call, they're not the lazy teenagers, it is their biology, and yeah, I feel bad for them. But
so is there a little tip for us parents? Because it's a everyday struggle to like, just getting to school on time. It's a thing. Like in any like.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I think, teens have it really hard. And it's, I know there's some states that have they've done some pilots on shifting schools back an hour later, and it's made such a big improvement on, behavior, achievement levels, all that, so go and lobby. But I know that's a big, that's a big thing, but no, but, I think probably a good thing that I would advise all parents who have teenagers is to make sure that there is a buffer time between when they, their wakeful activities. And so for teens, a lot of that includes screen time, right? Being on their screens, on their computers, talking to their friends. So creating this wind down ritual routine between their day-to-day activities and bedtime. And so that means maybe leaving a half an hour or an hour before they're turning out the lights to unwind. So that might be, like putting away their clothes or reading, or maybe, if they want to listen to a podcast or something relaxing. But the idea is that we want to send a signal. Our brains and bodies need a signal to start shutting down, right? Sleep does not operate like a light switch. It's not an on-off switch. It's a transitionary activity. And it's funny because, almost everybody I know with children is, mildly to extremely obsessed with their children's bedtime routine, and we talk about this all the time, and they're obsessed. Well, okay, well, I got to get them. They have their bath, and then they have their book, and then they have their song. And somewhere along the way, we think as adults or teens that doesn't apply to us anymore, but it 100% applies to us. So we need to do the same thing. And so I think for teens, it can be really tricky because you're also going through a stage where they want to be independent, and, there's a lot of clashing anyways with parents, and you're not the boss to me and whatever. But I think, setting those boundaries, I think keeping screens out of the bedroom and keeping screens, not really an option for that 30 to 60 minutes before bed, and helping them come up with something that might be relaxing for them to do. But it's hard. Teens are hard. And, you know, I don't work with a ton of teens, but I know parents find that really challenging. And then, you know, what can help though is in the evening as well, lowering light levels. So if there's, you know, not having big over bright, you know, pot lights on and lamps or dimmers. And then in the morning, getting a lot of bright light, because bright light in the morning, what happens? And outdoor light is key, because what happens is bright light, it hits our eyes, it goes into our brain, and then it sends a signal to our brain to wake up. And our brain starts releasing all these, you know, mood boosting and alerting chemicals that are going on. So just ensuring, and for all of us, not just teens, but getting direct bright sunlight, if possible, you know, immediately upon waking, even if you're turning on bright lights in the home, that's good. But definitely getting outside if you can. Even another boost at lunchtime is going to help keep that going. Taking off sunglasses outside, that is huge. A lot of people wear sunglasses, but when you're wearing sunglasses, you're blocking that important light spectrum that you want at the time. So, you know, that can help with that daytime alertness level. And then, keeping lights low as the sun is going down. You sort of want to mimic what's happening with the sun in your sleep-wake cycle.
Yeah, that's good. There's a bunch of good tips in there. But the one that really resonates with me is the bright lights in the morning. So I've kind of gotten the clue somewhere along the way that how important light is. And so I've got all these like smart lights, and I'm kind of, you know, like I mentioned before, kind of a certainty junkie. So I've got all the controls of the lights on my phone, and I do intentionally lower the lights in the evening, but I never put that together, that it makes sense. Like, just get all the lights on in the morning, because when we're getting up, it's usually dark, at least this time of
and
year.
winter is hard. Winter is hard because you're like, oh, I want to hibernate and be cozy, and just no, get those lights on. Even better, open up your door, have your cup of coffee, your cup of tea sitting outside.
All right. So I'm going to start blasting the lights in the morning. That's good. All right. I know we're really close to being out of time, but I don't want to let you go without asking about snoring. That's one I hear a lot. One or more of the partners snores, married couples. And that's an issue. And I know that snoring, you know, there's some solutions to that. And if you, and it could also be something that's affecting your sleep quality, whether you're the snorer or the person having to put up with it. So what's your tips there?
Yeah, for snoring. Okay. Well, I mean, again, it depends. Why is the person snoring? Sometimes it's positional. So if they're on their back, a really uncomfortable tip that I offer sometimes is if you can sew in like a tennis ball on the back, or there's pajamas that you can buy that have a little spot to put a tennis ball in. So when you're on your back, it's uncomfortable, and then you can roll, it'll, you know, get you to roll over your side.
Gotcha.
There's, you know, those breathe right strips that can be useful. You know, I know a lot of people are talking about mouth taping. However, I think, so the idea, it's, you know, you can use some medical grade tape, and you tape your mouth closed so that you're breathing through your nose. However, I don't want to, you know, I think you want to check out what, you know, that you don't have apnea or something like that, because if you're closing your mouth, then you're really just restricting air getting into any of your airways in your brain. So, you know, before you do that, speak to your doctor. There's some sinus rinse, some like a saline rinse you can use in your nose, and you know, making sure also that your bedroom is getting proper ventilation. So, you know, I always, winter it's harder because it's freezing here, but just opening up your windows if you can, letting some airflow go in, washing your sheets regularly, you know, trying to avoid any dust or allergens. You know, some people sleep with their pets in their bed, but if they have allergies, well, you know, that could close off your passageways. And I think, you know, if you're snoring a lot, you do want to go to your doctor, and you probably want to get screened for sleep apnea, because, you know, snoring is a red flag for that. And sleep apnea is when, you know, the muscles and the tissues in your throat are collapsing, and then there's pauses in your breathing. And, you know, when you're not breathing, you're not getting enough oxygen to your brain. So it has consequences. But for the person who's not snoring, or the person who's snoring, the other thing, which is an unpopular tip, but it's something that I want to break the barrier. You know, it's having, I call it a sleep divorce. If you have the luxury of having another bedroom, Go and sleep, or at least some of the days through the night, sleep in separate bedrooms. And people get really funny about this. They don't like, they think they're like, oh no, this is a fail in our relationship. And my grandparents, who had the most loving, amazing relationship, their entire married life had separate bedrooms because you could hear my grandfather snoring like 100 feet away.
Right.
And that's just what they did. So, consider that, even if it's not for, all the time, it might be useful. And of course, earplugs and things like that. But it's tough. It's tough. If my husband, if Alex snored, I would definitely be in a separate bedroom because I'm a very light sleeper, and it wouldn't work. We wouldn't be married anymore.
You would at least have a sleep divorce.
We'd have a sleep divorce. Yeah.
So I like that. And I think a lot of what you do, and I can definitely relate, my coaching practice, has a lot to do with, challenging thoughts and assumptions, and, habits come out of, how you're thinking and feeling. So, I like that. That's a lot of what you do is like, let's, that holistic approach, like, what are your concepts about it? And if you have anxiety about getting to sleep, that's not going to help, right? So you probably having to do a lot of thought work, and
definitely.
And it sounds like, you've given like so many different ways to address it, and I'm sure we've just scratched the surface. What I want to do is just encourage people to have that, it's not a one size fits all. So you have, I know an offer that people can come and have some kind of consult with you, just to kind of like get a individualized, like, okay, what's a potential plan for me? So can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah. So if somebody, if anyone's interested, if they're having issues, so that's, falling asleep, having good quality sleep, waking up feeling unrefreshed, any other sleep related issue, I always encourage, come and book a discovery call with me. And that's on my website. You can book it right there. It's, 20 minutes, and I'll hear more about what's going on with you, and, can give you some tips, but, more so for you to learn about my process. And I think, part of that is also figuring out, and I think people have to come to that conclusion on their own. Are they ready? Are they ready for change? Because that's a big part, right? There is a level of commitment, but they can absolutely do that. And right now I'm offering, it's a 4-session coaching package. I'm actually not offering individual sessions right now, and it's something I toyed with, but I think I've really learned that the best change happens in incremental amounts over time. And so if I'm only offering individual sessions, I could give someone a laundry list. Some people may go with it and be good, but I think for most of us, to really set them up for success and myself up for success, my program works best when we're working over a period of several sessions. So they can do that. And then should I talk about, I am in the midst of developing we're calling it the Sleep Reset, and it's going to be a 2-hour sleep workshop targeted specifically at parents who used to sleep before they had kids, or slept well enough. And then they had children, and then their babies are waking up in the night as they should, and you're being responsive and your sleep's getting all out of whack. Fast forward, your kids are sleeping through the night, but you are still stuck in that, hypervigilant alert state or whatever's happening, and you are not getting the rest that you need. So this is, 2-hour workshop, doing a lot of education, and also you will be taking home your own sleep optimization plan. So we'll be doing some assessments on that, and then putting into practice some change that you can put into place. And
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that the date, it will be sometime in March. So I will share it with Scott, and he can share it with you.
Coming up in March. Yeah. So if it's in time for the show notes, I'll have in the show notes, but either way, the website, taliashapero.com is in the show notes. You can get a hold of Talia in her Facebook and her Instagram, links in the show notes there. Also, teaser for future reference, Awaken Life Academy members. Talia and I have talked about having her as a guest at one of our Awaken Life Academy group calls in the future. We don't know when, but we talked about that. So stay tuned, and check out the website, taliashapero.com, links in the show note. And then there's a link there for the 20-minute consult, and that's free. So that's a no-brainer. and then the 2-hour workshop for, I know that there's at least a few people listening who are right there in that, like, oh, wait a second. Yeah. So you're talking about, I used to sleep good and then I had kids and now I don't. Oh yeah, sign me up. I'll be there. I think there's a lot of people who can relate to that. But anyway, Talia, I appreciate you being on the show. But I want to give you final words or anything else that you wanted to say before we go.
I think, we've covered most of it, but, I do want to reiterate that sleep challenges are not final. It doesn't have to be this way. So many of us, myself included, thought, oh, I'm just a bad sleeper. That's just the way it is, and I think that's a really big misbelief and misconception that a lot of us have, especially parents who are just like, oh, well, yeah, now I have kids, I can't sleep. And no, that's not the case. So there are solutions out there. And I always encourage, book a free call with me or go to your doctor or whoever is your healthcare professional, because nobody needs to be stuck feeling like they can't get the quality and quantity of sleep that they need. And we need sleep to operate, as well as we can. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Don't be stuck in a hopeless state. You haven't tried everything. Give this a try. If you think you've tried everything, you haven't. Give this a try. And my friend Ford Taylor, he says the pain of change, the pain of staying the same has to exceed the pain of change for pain to occur. Well, don't let it get to a place where it's so painful. Like, make a move now, get some, do some investigation, get some answers, and book that consult with Talia. And Talia, I appreciate you being on the Wake and Life podcast.
Yeah, pleasure. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Thanks for listening to the Awakened Life podcast. I've been your host, Scott Landis. Hey, are you feeling overwhelmed and stressed out? It could be that you're out of balance or have a misalignment of your time and priorities. This month at Awakened Life Academy, we're featuring the Total Freedom Life Wheel exercise designed to help you uncover what might be off balance in your work, life, and other priorities. And then it helps you realign your priorities to your purpose. Check out the full training video and free download at wheel.awakenlife.com. That's wheel.awakenedlife.com for free access. Don't put this personal growth opportunity off. Go get it now and start to experience the freedom that balance can bring to your life. Go to wheel.awakenlife.com.